Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back with another cast over. It's Neblime as the Lemon Zerg. I mean, this must be scripted at this point. And Scoler as the Palatinate Blue Protoss. And he says HF. Normally he does say messages that only have 2 letters. But you know what? This time he did it a little bit differently. He didn't go for the XD play. That being said, just want to let you guys know that at this stage, we are indeed just about finished with the sign-ups for Ascension number 5, and I'm recording this on the 26th of September. So we got 4 whole days before that tournament kicks off. So I hope you guys are ready. I hope you guys are looking forward to yet another exciting tournament. And this is not the latest version of Otherworld, but that's okay. Although, you know what's really funny is lately I've had the Orbit Culture song. I think it's literally called Another World, but there's like a part of it where it sounds like he's saying Otherworld. Anyway, that's been stuck in my head for a while, and I was thinking about that today, and then I was like, oh yeah, I got to do a cast over. And then, of course, the first map of the match set or whatever is Otherworld. I don't know if these are all on Otherworld, because I know Neblime likes to stick to one map and just play it over and over again, which is really funny, because if he's like pracking for the tournament, then he's going to realize, oh shit, you know, this is a bit different, because this is a different tournament, you know, like different version of the map is coming up. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Neblime's actually playing as Zerg, as I mentioned, so it's kind of interesting, right? Like, Scoler signed up as Terran, Neblime signed up as Terran. Neither of them are playing their tournament races, but maybe this will give them a little bit of an understanding of what's up with the project, right? So we'll go ahead and use some camera hotkeys here. I don't mind sort of like laying open the fourth wall here while I do talk about that. So what I usually do, for those who are wondering, is I usually go for F1 and F2 for the player mains, and then F3 and F4 for the corresponding naturals. So I do like F1 and F3 is for Neblime here. But anyway, we have a lattice coming up for Mr. Scoler. I am really accustomed to using the mouse. There was a comment on the last castover, actually, talking about how it would be better if I used the arrow keys for movement. I guess if I'm going to do that, I might as well go ahead and quickly pause, just so I can set the key scroll to like really slow or something, so that's a little bit better. Maybe that is a little bit better, I don't know. It's obviously not going to be as smooth as something like Remastered is, although I think Remastered might be the same way, but I watch all my casts at double speed, guys. So if you guys are wondering why sometimes I seem a little hyperactive, at least now you know. It's not because I'm ADHD or whatever, it's actually genuinely I'm used to that kind of speed. So we do actually have a little bit of harassment coming over here. Scoler is indeed taking a lot of damage to his scribe, but he's disrupted a little bit of mining. You know, I'm not sure if that really adds up. It does make a difference, but I think it's mostly psychological. Like, this guy's being fucking annoying, man. Like, why's he got to be like that? We do have an Ecclesiast and a Legionnaire, and out of these structures, we have another Legionnaire and, indeed, a Simulacra. So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, we pan all the way up here, and we get to see this. There is a command for following a unit. I have to look up what that command is in stock StarCraft, because I never used that before, so I assume it's still the same. But anyway, the Skither Corps is just going to come down here and see, maybe harass some of the land-born attackers. Maybe give a free sim. No, actually, Neblime is going to go ahead and take that away and say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to allow you to have a free unit. Another gateway coming. Scoler not interested in expanding anytime soon. Meanwhile, Neblime, he's done this strategy in the Grand Finals, actually, against Mystery Meat. I think this was played before the Grand Finals, so that's probably why he's still playing as Zerg, and why he's also still playing on the old version of Otherworld. Now it makes sense, because this is where he pioneered this particular strategy, right? This is kind of interesting, right? Because it gives you access to the ramp, and then you can also, of course, take the geyser and do that stuff. So that makes a lot of sense. He is going for a Zorkis behind this, which is the sort of like agreed-upon response to Mass Gateway. And I'm not sure that I think he saw the gateway with his scouting skiff. Obviously, it's right over here on the left-hand side, so that's not too bad. There's going to be a potential army move out here, although, you know, Scoler, I've noticed Scoler has not yet maybe been punished for leaving his entire army, and then, like, just marching across the map, right? Because an air unit can sneak in here, and if there's no static defense, you can absolutely get completely ambushed here. His own units are blocking him again from getting this victory. We actually saw this in one of the recent matches where he played Protoss, although that one I don't think made it to the channel, because I was then going to cast the second match because it was a kind of a shorter one, and the second one had a replay issue, so absolutely slapped. Scoler is, unfortunately, he has had some issues with his internet connection, so I hope that doesn't befall him in the middle of the tournament play. Nor do I hope it, befalls him here, because then maybe that also introduces some instability. from the networking side. So 3 Lakizilisks are burrowed. They're going to go ahead and kill that that Legionnaire that charged forth bravely. Scoler seems like he's still interested in seeing what's up over here. He does have a single vassal. His units are not respecting the cliff there. And while you don't get cliff advantage on Lakizilisks specifically, because of Lard, basically, and that is something we will eventually fix, it's interesting to see, you know, obviously, like, the Hydras obviously are going to benefit from cliff advantage. One of them did have to come back to deal with that vassal that was heckling. This vassal is going to heckle some more, just to see what's going on, and sees that the Zorki's Shroud is here. Now, anything at tier 1, I think Scoler has figured out, right? If we look back at his natural, he's actually taking a proper base before Neblime does, which is pretty good, although the Skithacor is still being annoying and still harassing. That Scribe is going to die. 3 kills on that Skith. I guess they must have all been Scribes that I wasn't paying attention to right back at home. Must have been something like that over here. So that's actually pretty significant, and it does add up. Already ahead in workers anyway. Certainly has now adding a 3rd hatch. The thing about Otherworld is that I think, based on what Neblime is showing us here, it might end up being kind of Zerg favored, at least in some matchups, purely because in this particular case, you don't need to worry nearly as much about, like, your first couple macro hatches being kind of inefficient or just for production. Like, I think the first 2 hatches that you put down can easily be made into, you know, something usable for your economy, right? This one allows you to get the gas. This one allows you to get the minerals in the ridge. So all while staying within your initial domain. So that's kind of interesting as like a bit of a permutation. Scoler does have a decent amount of gas. Neblime is starting to float a little bit himself. Grand Library on the way. Only 2 pylons. Being a little stingy with the pylons, man. Does obviously have his army over here too. When you build over your units, as evidenced in the micro crash course video that came out yesterday, obviously the Lakizilisks will get unburrowed. That's not going to be too significant. I'm sure he'll just reburrow them as soon as he can, or notices. I mean, technically, if he charged up here, there would be only 2 Lakizilisks actually burrowed, but there you go. There they go. I guess if we wanted to be full automation, something that we might consider doing is, I can't believe the Skithacor is still running around. But what we might consider doing is like issuing a reburrow command after the decollision or something. He's actually going to chance it and charge right forward, but that is, that's not going to be it, man. That is a big not it. And the Lakizilisks are actually going to use that moment to move forward. A lot of the Hydras here were on a move command, so that's not great. But yeah, the Scribes, or the Protoss army rather, has to fall backwards and say, fuck that. A whole lot of fuck that. I remember the first time I had ever heard somebody say a nice tall glass of fuck that, which was kind of funny in maybe 2012, because it was kind of novel at the time or whatever. Yeah, I think I heard it from one of Kian's friends, actually. Or maybe it was Kian himself talking to one of his friends. And I just remember, whoever it was, either Kian or his friend, whoever didn't say the joke, started laughing uproariously and was like totally flabbergasted. Could not believe that somebody could say something like that. It was so funny to him. And that was funnier than the actual joke, obviously. Now, we do have a little bit of scouting happening. 3 Gorgorkors are out. That'll make mincemeat of the clumped up units over here. A couple of Lakizilisks going down. It looks like maybe he can pick off 2 of them. But the, oh, look at that. The anchor being used by the Zerg and the Hydra. And that one Gorgorkor, actually 1 out of 4, was really, really low, but didn't end up getting focused down by the Dracodons and the Ecclesiast. Still a fairly good amount of consolidated power here for the army of Scoler, but he's not really able to get good focus fire onto the Gorgorkors that are actually wounded, right? There's like one that just finally popped. Another one is like at half HP. The Lakizilisks are getting a lot of space to push forward. And another thing to point out is that if you don't touch these Zerg units, you know, for a while, they will actually get a decent amount of HP regen, right? Burrowed units regenerate faster, twice as fast as the base regen, and the base regen is like twice as fast as Starcraft stock regen for Zerg, right? This is something I'll cover in the eventual like Zerg explainer video specifically. So 3 Lakizilisks are still here. The Amaranths are going to be able to keep themselves alive pretty well, but obviously there's no more Ecclesiasts because they've all died to the splash. So it looks like at this stage we will actually see the whole cleanup. Even pretty reasonable split where I think he could only damage 1 or 2 of those Dracodons max, depending on the angle. But you can see here the economic lead is in full swing. Neblime is nearly ready to throw down tier 2. He was able to expand behind this. That is going to give him a huge advantage going forward, whereas Scoler is only now resetting up really the scribe count at his natural. He is adding another gateway, He's been making units out of the Grand Library. Mostly, I think so far, we've only seen Amaranths. I'm not sure that anything else would have been more useful or not, but he is going to go ahead and pop this neutral anchor, the Azira Core, you know, just sort of stalling, letting some more military units pick back up in the absence of a macro cycle, since obviously the Iral Iris needed to be afforded. And we see some Azira Cores here precisely because of that. They only cost minerals, right? Now, this Circuit is a little bit poorly placed, since it will indeed be focused down. But at this stage, I'm not so sure that that's super consequential. Obviously, you can remorph it. Not supremely expensive either. More Kagrants being made. These Kagrants are most likely going to be Larvosks, adding a Quazeth pool and going up to a 4th base. If you want to call it like a 3.5 base, you know, this is not really a full base, but it does give gas, which is super impactful. Like it gives a normal base's amount of gas. And that itself is pretty significant, right? Because like we see over here, there's only one geyser, and it's not even being harvested from yet. If, you know, Scoler took this base with a Crucible or even just a flat-out Nexus for the Scribe production, he could scale into that base pretty easily. So it definitely could be something significant, but in the end, it doesn't look like it's going to matter too much here. Finally now realizing, oh yeah, I should saturate that gas. And he only has 12, by the way, workers at his natural for the minerals. 22 over here, a much healthier saturation. This Skither Core, will it finally die? No, of course. I mean, why lose the unit? If you can spare the APM to pull it away, even though it was your first military unit that you ever made, of course you would take it. Bunch of various Hydrith units standing guard over there. The Backtith is almost done. I'm looking around for any additional tech, but we still only have the Quazeth. We didn't turn that into a Kalkir, which is, of course, it's the advanced mutation, right? Why would you not know that? I was talking, a really funny exchange happened when I was talking with Gypsy on his stream at the end of my work shift. I came home, I was fixing some bugs or whatever, looking around some stuff, trying to implement DF's latest exciting changes to extend height for the tile sets. And I hopped in his stream, and he was like, in the best possible way, you are deeply autistic. And I was like, fuck yeah, man. So it was a good exchange. There's more back and forth than just that, but it was pretty funny. One of the things that he mentioned was like, you're just in these videos, you just say the insane names. And I'm like, yeah, dude. Why can't you say Scortrith? Why can't you say Estrathala? Speaking of, the Bactylisk is indeed going to go ahead and take a pot shot, punishing that vassal. But these frontline Azira cores are really just going to be made mincemeat. Very, very fast. You're just going to see some corpses there. The Scorchwrath is now under duress, but there's a lot more of them where that came from. I mean, there's one more Scorchwrath, a couple of circuits. Some Zeths are going to occupy a little bit, and crucially, that Gladius, which would have been the source of extreme sustained damage in a fight like this, does get popped by the combined bite of some Bactyls, and of course that Spraith back there. So that is going to make this fight a lot harder for Scoler to win, and indeed, he does lose it. A lot of blue juice, goon juice, Draca juice on the floor. Now, we do have 3-gate production. It's not spectacular. Scoler is floating a little bit of money. He's adding a prostration stage. Not a bad shout, actually. If you can go for, you know, a couple pariahs on the front lines, that can really start to jeopardize this army. You just need to not be lax in your Ecclesiast spending. Like, the Ecclesiasts, or the lack thereof, is preventing the shields from healing, and particularly when you're fighting against somebody who's starting to add in Zethra cores, obviously already had Izira cores, so these like frontline type units. You want the Ecclesiasts because they'll be restoring the shields of the ranged units that get engaged on and keeping these shields buffed for things like the pariahs. Maybe we'll see Archons in the future, obviously Amaranths. We do have a Cantabus on the way, so that is a pretty big deal because we might be able to see maybe some Psionic Storms blanketing the area, but there's only going to be one. It will immediately, in CMBW, spellcasters start with all of their energy, right? So that's already a big deal. Now, there is also an engram back here. Is it going to be focused down first? It's a little bit farther in the back. Psystorm would be ideal. It is being selected. Can he get it off? No! No, he cannot get it off because the Matrolets enchanted the Hydras with, and the Bactyls for that matter, with Ensnaring Brood. And that was really the only hope that he had. Even then, I think it would have been overwhelming, and it probably would have been Dovin on. But that, man, what a game to start us off in this set. So I'll quickly update the ye old UI. And he does say, you know what? Another message that didn't say XD, but did contain 2 letters. And that was Scoler's message there. He said GG. So, shocking, honestly. Shocking turn of events. Now, I think neblime obviously does outclass Scoler when it comes to, like, this race that he's been grinding on for who knows how long in terms of the general gist of things, right? This was technically played on the pre-release update, but it was obviously in prep for, I think it was right before the grand finals of the tournament or something like that, right? It might have been a warm-up game or something. Either way, in this particular case, neblime is still trying to, take matches towards Mystery Meat. Maybe he was hoping Scoler would play Terran, and then he could get some ZVT practice in. And maybe indeed Scoler does do that in the future games. So we'll just have to sort of buckle our seatbelts in and check that out a little bit later. But that'll be for a separate video. And yeah, honestly, I think, Scoler, maybe Protoss is not his forte, or maybe he just needs to learn it a little bit more. Obviously, like, you get access to the whole tech tree at the beginning, so you're only really gated by your resources. And I can imagine that might be a little bit overwhelming for new players who are not really aware of the race and stuff. But despite that, he was able to build a decent number of units. He did have a couple of threatening pushes. I think his mistake was not really being able... Like, when he went up the ramp versus, 5 Lakissilisks, that was definitely the mistake. And neblime is aware enough of, oh, you're falling back, and it's not just that. Your units are softened up, and some of them are dead. I can just keep pushing this. It doesn't even matter that my Lakissilisks aren't in the fight because they have to, reposition and burrow. Just their threat is going to force you to fall back and not be as efficient with your army, and that's going to make my army more efficient towards yours, even though... on paper, it should lose because it's only a couple of Hydras and Izzies. So that was a really big deal, and that allowed neblime to take control of the game, where previously he was kind of being contained, and maybe he would have had to take the back base, which has less minerals but more gas. That would have maybe allowed him a faster tier 2 timing, but definitely would have resulted in a less of an army scale up, right? Because the scaling factor, I guess, versus the power factor, right? Minerals are your scaling factor to control how many units you can make, how many production structures you can make, generally speaking. And gas obviously has some element and influence of that as far as the power factor of how powerful are the things that you're making are, but also has a big factor towards how fast your tier 2 is. And anyway, it just felt like Scoler was a little bit behind the 8 ball when it came to macro, but also that one decision that broke his ability to contain the Zerg or threaten imposter and stop the Zerg from being able to take those mineral-heavy bases, that's probably the big thing there. So anyway, that's my analysis of the game. We will be back with more replays in this set because I was sent, I think, 6 in total. We'll see how many of them end up making it to the cast. And there's the honk to send me off. So, honk world, boys. See you next time.